Hi, Vani from Clubscraft, where we help sports coaches spend more time with their athletes. And today we are going to continue in the series of the long term athlete development program, or LTAD. And the second stage is the fundamentals with a really big emphasis on fun. And last time we covered the active start, where we really want the kids to continue their development after their first year once they are able to stand on their own legs and then take their first steps. We generally then forget about monitoring their progress, but it's really important for us to be present and make sure that they learn the basic skills of walking straight, walking back to the sides, and then incorporate some crawling and rolling and all this kind of stuff. And then once they get to the age of 6, then we have to start adding a little more challenging stuff to it. So we are then going to look into balancing and agility. And agility is something that's really important at that stage because basically every sport that you're working with has some kind of quick movements and rapid acceleration and also deceleration, which we have to incorporate in our training. But everything that we do still has to be geared towards fun because they are still very small children. And if we start over specializing them very soon, then they might get injured and get those overuse injuries that you can see when you start pushing kids far too early. So some of the exercises that you can do with kids at that age, and one thing that I also have to emphasize is once they cross the age of 6, children, or depending on their gender, they start developing a little differently. So girls start to develop a little quicker than boys. So this fundamentals stage is for girls from the age from 6 to, let's say, 8, while boys take a little bit longer. So it's something like 6 to 9 years of age, where you really have to work on balance and coordination and agility and this kind of stuff. And some things that you can do is have these multilateral movements. So they can start sprinting in one direction and then change direction, move back. And it's not just about running, always in front of ourselves. So you can add different side steps, backwards runs. And one thing that is also kind of tricky for kids is to have, for example, games where on the first clap they start accelerating, and then on the second clap they have to stop as quickly as possible. And this is something that will come in handy in various different sports like tennis or football, or a bunch of different sports where this quickness is very important. So it's not just about sprinting fast and then slowing down gradually. They have to learn to stop their bodies as quickly as possible in the shortest amount of space. And you can also include balance beams. Try and make them not too high, but everything that is just 1 or 2 steps high is going to be sufficient, because if they fall over, you want them to be able to just jump back on the beam and then continue on with the exercise. And you can also then incorporate, once they get used to just walking across the beam, you can have them, for example, pass a ball from one hand to another. One thing that I really love is use those balance boards, have a kid stand on the balance board, and then we just throw a normal sized ball back and forth. And this is also where you can start incorporating a little bit of strength exercise, but keeping in mind that this strength exercises should be focused on functional movements like lifting a Swiss or medicine ball and then just throwing it, or those simple exercises. You don't want the kids hit the gym and then just work on the machines. That's something that's going to come much later in their development. So the only thing that you really have to keep in mind is continue their development from the active start that we talked last time, and then just add a little layer of complexity with those agility movements, with those throwing movements, running and jumping and skipping on one leg, on two legs, over some obstacles. So just keep them engaged, keep them throwing some curveballs in their way, and then once they cross the 8 or 9 year threshold, then you can start introducing a little bit more of sport specific stuff. But until then, you really have to make sure that they try as many sports as they can. And this is something that's a little bit tricky, because if you are a football club, if you are a basketball club, a gymnastics club, or like in my case, a taekwondo club, you don't have a lot of knowledge of different sports. So I had to reread or learn a lot of stuff when it comes to proper running form, or how to do correctly a rolling exercises. So this is now where you as a coach really have to invest in yourself, and then pass this knowledge on to your students or your athletes. And this is something that's really tricky, because you are most likely not full-time coach, and you are really trying as best as you can to learn as much as you can about the sport that you are teaching, and then to have this requirement that you have to learn a little bit about gymnastics, a little bit about judo, about swimming or strength training. It can get quite complicated. It's a lot, and I get it. But some basic things from different sports is something that you should really learn and then incorporate into your training, because you really don't want your 7-year-old kid train like someone who is 15 or 16 years old, because I've unfortunately seen it quite often that kids start specializing very, very early, and then by the age of 10 they are already burned out from all the competitions and from all the training. You should never have more than an hour and a half of training per day, and you always have to keep it fun for the kids, because if they feel like this is something that they have to do and not something that they like to do, then they are going to start pushing back, and you're going to create this divide between you and the athlete, and then you're going to have a child that's resenting sport and that's not enjoying everything that the sport has to offer. And sport in general, it doesn't matter which discipline this is something that is really rewarding for the students, for the athletes, and especially for the parents who see the development their kids are doing. So keep this in mind and educate yourself as much as possible, because it's going to help a lot of kids down the line, and you are going to set them up for a lifetime of enjoyment in sport. And that is it when it comes to fundamentals. So just keep it simple, continue what you are doing with the younger kids, add some speed skills, add some agility stuff, some balancing stuff, throwing, rolling, jumping, that sort of stuff, and keep it in a safe environment with no pressure, and try and give your kids the chance to explore as many sports as possible, as many as you can fit into your environment. On a different note, I'm very close to finishing off Clubscraft version 2. We are just a couple of weeks away from relaunching the application with a lot of new features, and it's going to be a lot easier to work with. There is going to be also some relaunching discount codes that you will be able to get. So stay tuned, and I see you next time. Bye bye.